All right, so today I want to talk about another tweet from Zuby Music. Now, again, he's a very insightful guy. So he says the same people who blame the government for all of society's problems are always the ones who want to give the government more power, more money, more control over everyone's lives, but they think I'm the crazy one. Now, again, this is just one of the infinite amounts of contradictions when it comes to the left, mainly the left, because I mean, the basic political theory is the left wants more government and the right wants less government. Now, again, it doesn't always happen that way in practice, specifically with the right having less government, but the left always ends up with more government. That is one thing you can assume for sure. But this is, again, like I say, one of the many contradictions of the left, too, is that and this is again another way that you can tell that people on the left are just entirely dumbed down and just completely ignorant, and that not only do they never sit back and consider alternatives, but the thought doesn't even cross their mind. Like the thought clearly does not even cross most of these people's minds that, hey, we have this problem in society that we're trying to fix, and our solution to it is just more of the same. Maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe we should try something different. Like that thought has clearly never crossed their mind. Like clearly never crossed their minds, because if it did, they wouldn't have the same worldview. At least for most of these people on the left. And like I say, the big reason is that most of these people, their opinions aren't necessarily theirs. Their opinions are popular cultures, or at least like popular leftist culture, which is most of popular culture. It's just their opinions, right? Like, um, and for the simple reason too that most of these people, when you actually talk to them, they can't actually articulate what it is they believe and why it is they believe it in detail. And if you actually had thought things through well yourself, then you would be able to articulate it and explain it out in detail fairly well yourself. And for the simple reason that they can't, it's just all the more evidence you need that they don't have any idea what they're talking about. It's like, okay, well, it's like the whole healthcare thing. Well, why do we need socialist healthcare? Well, because the poor will die if we don't have it. Again, they never consider any alternatives that, hey, one of the many problems with socialist healthcare is that it incentivizes the poor to be unhealthy and arguably makes things worse. And I mean, the other problem too is that if you have like I say, if you have a free market system or even more of a free market system, there's a lot more of an incentive to keep people healthier, which means the healthier people are, the more they're going to be able to produce too. So, I mean, if you took, I mean, let's just take an example. If you took 1,000 people who were, healthy and that they're a healthy body weight, as far as nutrition goes, everything was in good shape. They sleep well, all that kind of stuff. And you take 1,000 people who are 100 pounds overweight, their nutrition is non-existent, they don't sleep, they don't do anything. Like, which group is going to produce more as far as in their day-to-day lives? Well, it's the healthy people, and it's probably not even close. So again, the other problem too when it comes to healthcare too is that it's not only the healthcare in and of itself, it's the other things too. So maybe that maybe um, it will temporarily hurt a little bit, but in the long run, okay, well everybody becomes richer because there's more of an incentive to be healthy, and again, healthy people are on average are going to earn more money. So again, there's so many more aspects to this kind of stuff. It's not just a one in of itself. Now again, that is just one example. There's many examples, but again, this is the big problem. Again, this is one of the many reasons why again I have no respect for all these socialists and the Black Lives Matter people and all this garbage, because again, their solution to all these problems is just more regulation, more government. But again, do we have more government and more regulation than we did 50 years ago? Well, of course, but the same people think that the problem is worse today than it was back then. So again, it doesn't make any sense. Like they're so objectively wrong, it's not even funny. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that their way of thinking is wrong, but it definitely means that their solutions to the problems are wrong. Because again, the only solutions to um, the problems of government is to give less power to government, because again, and this is one of the other many things when it comes to the left too, is that um, on one hand they'll fundamentally argue that um, if you don't like the government, you can vote them out. But on the other hand, they'll argue that, oh, well, people are too stupid to have a free market. Like, you can't have a free market healthcare system because people are too stupid and dumb to take care of their health. And you need to have massive amounts of regulation, because if you don't, people will be they'll voluntarily sign up to do slave labor or like below minimum wage labor. Like, again, so it just goes to show again just how crazy these leftists are. That, oh, you know, like I say, that they're smart enough to vote for who should run the entire country. And I mean, like I say, in the States example, the most powerful country on earth by far, but they're too stupid to figure out how to eat healthy. Like, again, like, come on, like, you got to keep your arguments consistent. Like, either people are stupid when it comes to everything, or they're smart enough when it comes to everything. Like, there's no in between. And if there is an in between, it's not they get to make a decision that affects literally the lives of the entire world for and not only that, in a pretty grave way. Like, that's a little bit more of a decision than some of these other decisions. So um yeah, that's one of the many crazy aspects of this too. And like I said, the main problem is it's just a clear contradiction. Like, again, um if you're blaming the government, like, again, it's the same stuff with the whole police brutality stuff, is that the left fully supports, you know, someone who if you don't pay your taxes because you don't want it going towards bombing kids in the Middle East, or paying for healthcare people who are 100 pounds overweight and smoke a pack a day, if you don't pay your taxes because you don't want, or even if you take off a portion of your taxes because you don't want it going towards that kind of garbage, they fully support the police coming to your house, and if you refuse to go, them using force against you. But they're shocked and appalled, like shocked and appalled when force gets, I mean, take for example, they're shocked and appalled when force gets used against someone who beats a cop, so I mean, drives drunk for starters, well on probation, um, um, beats a cop so bad that he has a concussion, like a pretty severe one too, from what I've heard. Beats the other one to a degree as well. Steals his taser, tries using it on him, misses the first time, tries using it on him the second time, is almost successful. They're shocked and appalled that lethal force gets used against that guy, but they're fully for um, that same amount of force being used against someone who refuses to, or assuming they escalate the situation, right? That same amount of force being used against someone who is perfectly peaceful, never committed any crimes other than not wanting their money to go towards bombing kids in the Middle East, or paying for the health care of 100-pound people that are 100 pounds overweight and smoke a pack a day, or paying for the welfare of some single mom who's got 3 kids from 3 different guys and refuses to work. Again, you're the worst person in the world if you refuse to pay for that kind of stuff. But if you if you support, using force against someone who beats a cop half to death and tries using something that is considered a lethal weapon in that state against them, that's the worst thing in the world. Like, again, it's just the contradictions are off the charts with these people. Like, it's insane. Like, it's beyond insane too. Like, not only that too, they charged the cop who got beat half to death with murder. With murder. Like, again, like this is stuff that you would read about in clown world, or like just the craziest. Like, this is supposed to be satire kind of stuff, but it's reality. So again, there's many aspects of this kind of stuff, but like I said, the main thing being is that if you want to complain about the government abusing their power, fine. I agree with that. I think the government has way too much power and abuses it far too often. But if your solution is just to give them more power, then you are insane. Now, their argument is, they won't directly see it in this way, but the leftist argument is that, oh, if we just had people who are on our team, basically, in those positions of power, it would be perfectly fine. That's basically what their argument is. I mean, they, like I said, they won't put it directly like that because it sounds so crazy, but that's the reality of it is that they think that, oh, if people that, like I say, that they think that socialism would fix a lot of these problems. And what are they saying? Well, what happens if you have socialism? You need an even bigger and more powerful government. But if it's a socialist government, they're people that are on our team, so they'll be just fine. But the reality is that human psychology doesn't differ depending upon your political beliefs. It doesn't. Again, so this is why government needs to be as limited as possible, because if you give it too much power, people will abuse it. Again, the left also argues that, oh, if you give corporations too much power, people will abuse that power. But if you give government even far more power than corporations, the government won't abuse that power. Like, again, they're so insane, it's not even funny. Like, corporations can't point guns at people and send the cops after people if they don't pay them. But the government can. Again, so the government has way more power than corporations do. Like, way more power. Again, so that's basically what I wanted to talk about today. Like I say, very insightful quote from Zuby Music. So give him a follow on Twitter if you haven't already. And speaking of that, make sure you follow me on all my platforms as well if you haven't done that already. I'm going to place all the links in the description so you can check them out all there.